Chapter 14. The Static of Muddled Generalities. If there was exception to each and every form of thinking, then the thinking only posed as the reality whilst being illusion to which we adhere. The world was a mess, and the only way to keep it from becoming a frenzy of messy activity was to construct stoic forms in which to house varied and diverse aspects. The rules of generalizations were not rules, but only guidelines that each person used to the extent they wished in order to make sense of the world. Being upfront was one of Melody's strong points, and she was competent at implementing her strength in order to better serve the goodness in the world. As she knew this, she was also attentive to the likelihood that she would be perceived as arrogant, and so she went the extra mile to curtail herself by means of humility. Those times when she was lacking in that self-vigilance, her work had a way of humbling her in visceral ways. She was on her break and trying to stay collected as her phone booted up. She had to convey something important to her new fiancé and was debating if text or a direct call would be the better medium. Wholly aware that text usually got relegated to simple messages or updates, and that any greater gravity than estimated times of arrival divergent from an agreed-upon plan tended to be overlooked as much as a well-stated notion when lacking punctuation. She decided on calling, and went about finding a space that would allow her enough privacy to speak or leave a voicemail, as would be most likely given the time of day she would be calling him. She went over in her head what she would say to communicate to him not just the idea, but the true serious nature of the idea being actualized. Her certainty of the situation was barely larger than her nervousness with how the request would be met by her fiancé. She knew the nature of her altruism was something that endeared her to him, but this would be the actual testing of how real their connection was. A sweet man with an easy temperament, Adam was devoted to his daughter even though he and his ex-wife were not compatible. He went out of his way to provide not just resources, but a wide berth for the emotional stability of his ex-wife. His reasoning was that he trusted her completely in the care of his daughter, but only if he did not upset her equilibrium. That, in his opinion, was why the marriage didn't last. His presence was enough to have her off kilter from her natural state of being. And it would have been better if he just wasn't around to cause her agitation. Of course, Melody was suspicious, as he made himself out to be a selfless husband who walked from the marriage just for the sake of everyone else, and it didn't make sense that he would pursue a new relationship with her. Delving deeper into his wound, he admitted to both of them growing apart that his ex-wife just did not seem to like him any longer, and that she appeared as such to him tended to cause him not merely to dislike her, but to like her less. He felt like he was the one who admitted it first between them, and that the marriage had ceased to be something of benefit to them some time before he actually called it done by leaving. The discussion about this with Melody lasted days, and when he interjected that he might have just been too scared to think about what he would need to do in the marriage to rectify the rift between he and her, that he might simply have taken the easy path out because he did not have the strength to maintain the marriage, that he might simply be weak in his first marriage falling apart because he had failed it. She decided that her love of him was well-founded. The phone was ringing, and she held tight to that notion of him which she adored. His voicemail picked up, as she thought it would, and she cleared her throat while scanning the area around her for anyone who might needlessly overhear what she was about to say. The tone sounded through her phone, and she spoke. "Hi, honey. I said yes conditionally, and here is my condition. Call me as soon as you get this, because I need you to speak with your brother about another possibility for contracting the grounds maintenance at his property on 620. I have a family here that has the equipment and the desperate need for a win because they are expecting their second child. 3 generations, youngest is 10 and in school. Parents are migrant workers when not working with the grandpa's business keeping grounds at 2 schools. They need this, and I know we can help. Call me when you get this. I love you." She ended the call and took a breath. She heard the door to the stairwell she was standing beside creak open and spun around. "Nurse Kraus, are you getting involved in the patient's life again?" Khadisha was impressed and expressed it with mock admonishment. "How long have you been standing there?" Melody asked her friend and fellow nurse. "Long enough to hear what you asked your honey for. I don't know if having pity for you or being impressed is appropriate. Did you see them? They don't have insurance and are not in a good position. You don't have to justify it to me," Khadisha said. "That you have the means to offer that kind of help might be circumstantial, but that you try to make it happen, putting the course of your life on the line for them, is admirable. The course of my life? What if your honey doesn't want to help? Would you really give him that ring back? Of course not." Melody moved past her friend. "I would probably sell it and give them the money to help them make a dent in the medical bills." "Crazy, brilliant girl," Khadisha said as she turned her phone on to check her text messages. "I hope my Eli's wife is even half as courageous as you." "Coming from you, Khadisha, that's a compliment and a half. Courage sees courage." She made sure the chalk was positioned to keep the door open. "My phone is on and on silent. If you see me run to answer it, please cover for me."